Hit record. All right, our land acknowledgement. William Mary acknowledges the indigenous peoples who are the original inhabitants of the lands our campus is on today. The Cherenhaka, Nottoway, Chickahominy, Eastern Chickahominy, Mattaponi, Monacan, Nansemond, Nottoway, Pamunkey, Patawamek, Upper Mattaponi, and Rappahannock tribes, and pay our respects to their tribal members past and present. And next, I will read the statement on slavery and its legacies. The Board of Visitors acknowledges that William Mary enslaved people, exploited them and their labor, and perpetuated the legacies of racial discrimination. The board profoundly regrets these activities, apologizes for them, and expresses its deep appreciation for the contributions made by the African and African American members of its community to the vitality of William Mary then, now, and for all time coming, and commits to continue our efforts to remedy the lingering effects of past injustices.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that land acknowledgement and the statement on slavery. I'm Dr. Juwan Johnson, and I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm the Mellon Foundation Postdoctoral Fellow with the Lemon Project, and it is a pleasure to have this discussion with you and this presentation with you tonight, studying slavery and its afterlives using genealogical research. I'm also glad to be here with my colleagues, Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy of UVA and Ms. Renata Yapro-Saunders, representing Wake Forest, who will speak a little bit later here in a moment. But today we will discuss the parallels and differences of our genealogical research projects. We are also inviting you into this discussion. We know that this type of research cannot be done solo. It requires a community. And so we will be speaking the names of the people that we're researching, hoping that maybe you will find some type of research connection to the names that we speak. You also may know some possible familial ties, because we're researching people. The people who we're searching for are more than their enslaved status. They have hopes and dreams and desires and faith, and they have communities and families. Slavery, as many of you know, is in the DNA of the institutions we represent. As with many colleges established in the colonial and antebellum periods, the legacies or the afterlives of slavery persisted at these institutions following the Civil War and into the 20th century with the production of racist ideas, labor exploitation, and resistance to integration. The legacies of slavery also make the task of research challenging through destroyed records, exclusions from historical documentation, and family lines that did not survive the horrific institution of slavery. However, my colleagues and I, and you as well, are dedicated to telling the stories, to finding the people, to present a more robust narrative of slavery as it pertains to our institutions. And so with that, I'll pass this over to my colleague, Dr. Shelley Murphy, who will introduce herself. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming first. And thank you, Juwan, for starting us off. I am Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy. I am with the University of Virginia, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I am the descendant researcher for a project that they started a couple years ago. And I'm going to turn it over to Renata.
Good evening, everybody. I too would like to thank you all for being here and thank the Lemon Project at William & Mary for allowing us this opportunity. It's great to see a lot of friendly names and faces in the room. I am a genealogist who has been contracted by Wake Forest University to look into and attempt to find descendants of some enslaved persons who were sold to create an endowment for the university. And so you will hear more about that when we get to my part. And I, again, just welcome everyone and thank you for being here.
Okay. Thank you so much. All righty. We'll dive into our presentation. And I first wanted to just kind of ground this as I'm opening this with the Lemon Project, just to kind of give some background about the Lemon Project when we got started. So here's a timeline. In 2007, Student Assembly passed a resolution for the apology for William and Mary's role in slavery. And so the Lemon Project is really steeped in students' desire to know more about the institution of slavery at the institution. It's steeped in student activism, and students, as you would hear later, remain a vital part of our project and the research initiatives and the research agenda that we are carrying out. In 2009, the Lemon Project is established by the Board of Visitors resolution to research, to explore the subject of slavery at William and Mary, and also to build bridges within the community, to create a safe haven for the diverse students that we serve. In 2018, William and Mary adopted a resolution acknowledging the university enslaved people. And when I entered this project was 2019, through the Sharing Authority to Remember and Reinterpret the Past, to do genealogical research, community outreach, and student engagement. Lemon Project, as you know, some of you may know that it is named after a man named Lemon, whom you see in the photo, in the image to the right. At this particular time, this is a 1780 document. Lemon is he's being rented out along with other enslaved people. And further research has shown that he's actually being rented out he's shown in the tax records of 1782 to be rented to a man named Robert Andrews, a professor of moral philosophy at William and Mary during that particular time. So the more that we research and explore about the lives of people enslaved, the more we learn more about their lives. Although we haven't found descendants for Lemon, we continue to uncover facts about his existence at the college, as we are others who are enslaved by William and Mary. Okay. So the genealogy research initiative of the Lemon Project has a few goals. Number one, we provide family history and genealogical workshops, consultations to our descendant communities in the Williamsburg area and beyond. Many of you have participated in these workshops. We recently started the Sankofa Genealogical Research Series. Many of you have utilized that, and we've been able to coalesce on challenging genealogical research topics. And so it's been a pleasure to work with all of you who have contacted me to go further in your research. We also collaborate with descendant communities to possibly make connections to people who are enslaved. We have a registration, an intake form where you can actually fill this out. And many of you have as I mentioned earlier, where you can reach out to me, reach out to us about maybe possible ties. We also offer service learning opportunities for our students who are interested in advancing our genealogical research agenda to find descendants and to learn more about the lives of people who were enslaved. Now, as it relates to this particular genealogical research project, it's really broken up. I look at it in three categories. There are the people who were enslaved by the college that we know of, and then there are the faculty, staff, and board members who some of them brought their enslaved people to the campus. And then we also have people who are rented. And so each category presents unique challenges. Some present more resources or research resources than others. For an example, with the people who are brought to the campus by Board of Visitors members or faculty or staff, I've had somewhat of an easier time of locating some of them because I have a person to tie them with. I have the records of that particular enslaver. With the university, those who are enslaved by William and Mary, it becomes a bit more challenging for reasons we'll talk about later. But overall, we have 200 names of people owned and rented by William and Mary. Some of those names, we're also adding to that list with some research resources that I'll discuss later. And right here, I wanted to kind of give you a glimpse of slavery at William and Mary, and my other colleagues will do this as well. But in this research is also available online. 1693, we see that in the charters is that the said revenue of a penny per pound for every pound of tobacco aforesaid, with all the profits and advantages to lay out for the same the buildings and adornings and edifices or necessities to aid the college. So slavery, as we see, is the tobacco that is being harvested by enslaved people is used to fund the university. Then I'm often asked about who was the first person that we know of who was enslaved by the college. And so we have a man named Price, who was given to the college by Francis Nicholson, the governor of Virginia, from 1698 to 1705. 1718, we have the largest known single purchase of enslaved people that took place at the institution, purchased 17 people for the Nottoway slave plantation. On to 1754, we have 8 students who bring their servants to campus. Amongst those people who were brought to the campus as body servants, particularly for Carter and George Braxton, was a man named London, who my student research assistant, and I learned more about last semester. Also, we have further records and names of people that I encourage you to take note of. And also you can visit a link that I'll post in the chat later that'll give you further details of the people that we're searching for. Also, of course, 1777, we see that John Carter, who's the bursar, advertised 30 likely Negroes to be sold at Nottoway Quarter. And amongst those who were retained for the colleges to work at the college were Wingfield, Bob, Lemon, Adam, and Pompey. After emancipation, we see that slavery, or not slavery, but we see that people are still being exploited. And I've been able to find names of people in secondary sources, also on Ancestry.com, particularly those who made the 1870 census. One of the particular people is a boy named Robert Rush, who worked at President Ewell's house. Later on, I found that he is the son of Eliza Rush, who is 45 years old, and she is a cook on campus in that 1870 census. And so this particular census report has been leading me to communities of people. As you know, with slavery, we're not just looking for a person, but we're also looking for communities. So this particular census record has enabled me to look at the various families who are in this area with the hopes of finding those who may be connected to the college. So in terms of some research challenges and opportunities, the challenges are that 70% of the people on our list are unknown, or no surnames. Records, of course, were destroyed at William & Mary due to fires at the Wren Building, and these are the dates for that: 1705, 1859, 1862. Also, the constructs of institutional slavery makes it very, very difficult in that enslaved people are coming to William & Mary through many different channels, and it's not always easy to identify that. The opportunities are searching for enslaved people in the context of communities. The 1870 census, 1880 census report, Freedmen Bureau records have proven to be really good sources in this research. Also, descendant communities, churches, cemeteries, those who have oral histories, those who have done their own family research are also presenting breakthroughs in the research process. And also continuing to comb and search ex-ante record, financial records, faculty minutes, and papers of people with ties to slavery, to college during slavery. In terms of progress, we have built a genealogical research community. We have created trees for people who were enslaved by William & Mary on Ancestry, and we're adding profiles to WikiTree, more thoroughly examining the digitized bursars records, professor, board of visitors members records, external records that may be tied to people that we're searching for. Also, the identification of living relatives and descendants to particular families that we have found that have ties to people who are not directly enslaved by the college, but indirectly affiliated with people who have ties to William & Mary. Also, our student research interns have been proven to be very helpful in advancing our research. Also, findings and hints about people, the lives of people in various records, particularly the Dr. Andrew Galt 18th and 19th century records. We're finding new names of people who were enslaved by the college. And in this spring, we have already established a genealogy research roundtable that will meet on the third Thursday of each month, where we hope to further build the community of genealogists that we've built, those who have been doing research for quite some time and those who want to further help advance our research agenda. We will be doing these talks, these really informal sessions where people can really get the resources that they need to move forward in their research. So with that, I'll defer to my colleague, Dr. Shelley Murphy, who will discuss UVA.
All right, and again, thank you everyone for coming. And our project, you'll hear pretty much some similar things that you heard from Dr. Johnson. Back in 2007, the Board of Visitors apologized for slavery, and it just wasn't accepted by the students. There were some students that questioned it, wanted more information. So at that time, a commission on slavery was developed. And then that commission and everyone involved went to the community. So they went not only to the UVA community, they went to the local community of Charlottesville, Albemarle, and so forth. And so what happened was they got everything approved, got community input, and some of that community people included prospective descendants of some of the enslaved folks. So they hired me July 2019 as the Descendant Project researcher. I come with 30 years plus on the table as far as genealogical research. And so we went from there. So also what came out of this so far is the descendants of the enslaved communities at UVA. They are a new nonprofit basically set up within the last year, or maybe a little more than a year. And this is where we have descendants that have come together, and now they see themselves as a resource. They're definitely a resource for me. And you'll see a little bit more about them as I go through the slides. Joanne?
All right.
All right. So I'm going to give you a glimpse at the enslaved and the free laborers around UVA. And so one of the things I want to mention is that basically my time frame is anywhere from, say, 1800 to freedom. And so I wanted to put some details, just like Dr. Johnson did. And from 1776 to 1865, just to make note, Virginia held more enslaved people than any other state. UVA opened in 1825. They had 123 white male students. 90 to 150 enslaved people also were living on the grounds at that time. So you can look through the timeline and look, let's jump right to 1830. There's 147 enslaved African Americans that live and work at the university. 66 people were held by the professors, 57 others by the hotel keepers, and the remaining 24 were held by UVA. Jump down to 1840, 143 enslaved African Americans live and work at the university. Now 55 are held by the professors and 67 by the hotel keepers and 21 by UVA. So 1860, 104 enslaved African Americans live and work at the university. 55 are held by the professors, 36 by the hotel keepers, 11 by the proctor, and 2 by UVA. I wanted to give you a glimpse of how this rental system actually was going on during the construction pretty much of the university. And so in 1861, just as a note, approximately 14,000 enslaved African Americans, over half of the population, live in Albemarle County when the Civil War begins. 500,000 enslaved people are residing in Virginia. So you think about the progression here, and you can change the slide. Thank you. What the university did was basically look at the financial records, and they wanted to know where money was spent for labor and enslaved labor. I too used resources like the Freedmen's Bureau and of course Ancestry.com, also Family Search and other resources. UVA has a website called the Jewel site, JUEL. That's another resource I was able to look at. I had listings of a spreadsheet from the financial records and knowing where money was spent. who was renting to the university, names that could have come there. I too, the majority of my list are first name only. This presents a challenge for any researcher, not just me or Dr. Johnson or Renata, but some of the things that I was faced with was about knowing the law, what was going on during the times that people were rented to the university. So you got professors, you've got the area plantation owners, you've got the influence of Thomas Jefferson, because he's still around during this time until he passes basically in 1826. And so you've got a lot going on with the building, the construction, plus you had the school that started, which I noted earlier. So some of these challenges I bulleted here, and finding the records of where slave era, research had already been done was key. Who's already looked at this or looked at it in another area that I could, tap into and say, okay, let me make a research plan. So I wanted to have access to slave era documents. Well, number one, it had to be local. I couldn't always go get online because I needed to look what was going on at the university and the area plantations. So first name only, yeah, I got about 80 to 90% of first name only. And also some of the things, if you look at the time frame, and I had to also recall that if somebody was rented in 1820, 9 times out of 10, they were born before 1800. That was another challenge. What records are going to be there about enslaved people? So I had to look to the slave owners, plantation owners, and find out what's in their records. Are there bill of sales? Was there a transfer of their property, personal property? Was it something in their will? Where did people get handed down to? Were any mortgages put on any of these people? Or were they rented other places besides the university? So I had to understand that I'm going to have to research the slaveholders and interact with the slaveholder descendants just as much as finding descendants of the enslaved laborers, and as well the free people who were also working. So I had to engage in a lot of oral histories that there was an expectation by me and the descendants thinking, we've heard these stories, and now we got to seek out to see if we can confirm them. So those are some of the typical challenges. I knew I had to research the whole family, not just look for the one person. And I also had to come up with strategies. And I had to figure out, how am I going to do this and plan this out? Because we know about 1870. That is the first federal population census that African Americans who were formerly enslaved, they would show up with a first name and a last name. So some of the plan was to select the area. I chose Central Virginia, all of the counties that surround Albemarle County. I had to find out what community partners would be willing to work with me. So I looked for the genealogy groups, the historical society, the public libraries, and of course the community college that was in the area. I had to be in the community to let people know what I was doing. I understand and had to know who had done what before. With the university itself will bring challenges because lots of work has been done in various aspects. How could I tie it in where it will benefit and bring me names, or at least a lead to head to find a descendant? So I was gathering information, developed an intake form. So anyone that thought they had people in this area, that was the research area, possibly during the slave era, and we would look at their trees. So I also had to start educating people and do some outreach to the local, state, and national areas. So I did a lot of presentations, just like I'm doing right now. I had to make a decision on where that research is going to be shared so it can come back to me and I could add to the list that, oh, I found this person. So anyway, the Freedmen Bureau is key to a lot of this because of the 1865 to 1872 and also the United States colored troops. Who could be there and who could be involved that I might be able to pick up a name or a lead. So some of the progress and some of the shortcomings. I've built trees, and you guys can see on the other side the numbers as far as how many people we're dealing with. For UVA, there's a little over 600 people on the memorial, which you can see the picture there. But there's probably another 600 plus that are still to be found. So I built a principal tree, which is connected to Family Tree Maker, and it's on Ancestry. I also am building on WikiTree, like Dr. Johnson mentioned. We're building out slaveholder names and connecting them to the enslaved laborers, that it's put out more on a worldwide access for people to find. I continue to interact with the descendants of the enslaved communities for support. Matter of fact, right now, they just gave me an intern. And so I now have someone supporting the work that I'm doing and helping, and will be able to look at a little bit more. We hold Freedmen Bureau Fridays every Friday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And this is where we share information. We talk about the record collection. And again, if I had anything I could say as far as progress and shortcomings, don't have just one person doing it. You got to build your own community or your own team, which means engage with other researchers. And it could be that it's prospective descendants, or it's like engaging with Dr. Johnson and Renata, sharing information, sharing our challenges and things like that. So this is a quick example. Here's the path to Jim Henderson. He was an enslaved laborer. He was rented in 1821. He is the descendant's third great grandfather. And so you could see the list that I worked from. I got the slave owner. I got the identity of Jim Henderson as an enslaved individual and when he was rented. So there were notes in the financial ledgers that I could see. So I started building a tree. So with this descendant, she had also had done some research. And then as we did the research, it all came together. You can see Jim Henderson, born about 1800, and follow the line on down to where you see the little film, basically answering the question, can we find descendants? And I'm saying, yes, we can. Next slide. And I'm going to turn this over to Renata. And again, we will have question and answer time at the end. Renata?
Okay, good evening again, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm here to talk about the work that I am doing for Wake Forest University, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so I want to start off just by talking a little bit about the background of what's being done at Wake Forest. This is a much newer project than what you just heard from Jawan and Shelley, and I have only been involved for just about 6 months now. But in 2019, the Slavery, Race, and Memory Project was created at Wake Forest University to guide the research, preservation, and communication of an accurate depiction of the university's relationship to slavery and its implications across Wake Forest history. And they formed a steering committee at that time that had 3 main goals. One was to develop a mission statement for their project. 2, to coordinate the university's work as a member of the university's Studying Slavery Consortium, which Shelley and Jawan's universities also belong to. And then thirdly, to develop and implement an academically centered approach to examining the history of slavery and its implications at Wake Forest, both on the original campus and in Winston-Salem. Now, what that last one refers to is the original location of Wake Forest College, which was Wake Forest Institute, then Wake Forest College, and now Wake Forest University. it was originally located in the town of Wake Forest, North Carolina. And it began in 1834 at that location and remained in that location until the 1950s. So everything that, that Wake Forest is looking at as far as its relationship to slavery actually happened in a completely different location from where the university is now. Next slide. So the next year in 2020, during the annual Founders Day convention, Wake Forest President Nathan Hatch actually offered an apology on behalf of the university for participating in and benefiting from the institution of slavery and for exploitation and use of enslaved people, both those known and unknown, who helped create and build this university, being Wake Forest University, through no choice of their own. And so that was one of the first action steps from the university in addressing its history of involvement with slavery. Next slide. So we now move to where I come into this work. In 1836, a gentleman named John Blunt, who lived in Edenton, North Carolina, actually left in his will a statement that all of his estate after the death of his wife was to be sold, and the proceeds were to be given to the trustees of Wake Forest University to create an endowment of scholarship to fund the education of young men who wanted to go into the ministry or who were already involved with the Baptist Church. And so this is just a snippet of his will. And if you'll click for me one time, Juwan, and this is one of the very few newspaper documentations of that act. And you can see down at the bottom paragraph that it tells that we were gratified to learn that the college, being Wake Forest College, has recently come into the possession of $12,000, the bequest of the late John Blunt, Esquire of Edenton. And then it goes on to talk about $2,000 from someone else. But you'll notice that this is dated May 31st, 1860. Well, the reason for that is because although John Blunt passed in 1836, his wife, Rebecca, who had full use of the estate until her death, she did not die until November of 1859. And so subsequently, if you'll go to the next slide, the historical record shows that at the time of Rebecca's death, there were 16 enslaved persons who were part of the Blunt estate. I was hired to find the descendants of those 16 persons who were sold at auction, presumably, according to the record, on May 7, 1860, for the financial benefit of Wake Forest Institute, College, University. And so that is what I have been contracted to do. And so on the screen, you see the entirety of information that I was given to do this project with. All that is known is 13 of the 16 names. The other 3 were children and they were not named. The names, or the presumed names, I will say, of the purchasers, some of which I have found to have been transcribed incorrectly, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and the amount that the enslaved person was purchased for. And that brought the total of almost $12,000 for Wake Forest College. Now, before I go on about the project, and if you could just go back for a minute, Juwan, before I move on about the project, I do want to let you know that Wake Forest had a history, just as at UVA and at William & Mary, of hiring enslaved persons also, from the time it was created and all the way through the antebellum years. And they have names of about 60 60 enslaved persons. Many were unnamed, but they do have about 60. But that is not the group of people that they want to research at this time. And so I'm not doing any work with that, don't know anything about it other than that they have 60 names. And so my entire focus is on this group of 16 people. Okay, Juwan. Thank you. So I didn't want to kind of rehash everything that Juwan and Shelley have already said, because our challenges are pretty much the same. You know, we each have a kind of unique twist to our project, but in the, in the larger picture, we're dealing with the same kind of challenges. But specific to my project, as you just saw, the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges, is the fact that all I have are first names. I don't have any ages. I don't have any descriptions of the persons, and they are not placed in family groups. And I am sure that some of them are related to one another. So, but I don't know how, other than the fact that I know there are Anne and 2 children, but I don't know the names or the ages of the children. And there was Harriet and 1 child. So that's very limiting. Also, just having the names of the purchasers, when their names are things like John Thompson. How many John Thompsons have you run into in your research? Or Peter White, just very common names that I've had to try to figure out who they are, where they came from, where they were located. And at first, when I started the work, I was looking in the area around Wake Forest and quickly found out that none of the purchasers were from the area around Wake Forest. They were almost all from the area where Rebecca Blunt lived, which made sense, the Edenton, Chowan County, North Carolina area. And there were a couple who were affiliated with that area, but lived in Virginia. So that is one of the things that I had to find out quickly. But some of the names of the purchasers were not transcribed accurately. And so I have found at least 3 whose names are not exactly what you just saw on that list. And then again, just the fact that the purchasers are not identified in any way. Like one of them 2 of them actually were pastors, but they didn't say Reverend Samuel I. Johnston or Reverend this, that, or the other. So these are things that I, had to find out through the research. Also, with any genealogical project, we are going to want corroborating evidence that lets us know that this person that we're looking at with this name at this age and this location is the right person. Well, because I don't even have any of that to start with, there's really no way to corroborate it with anything else. I'm desperately seeking any mention of the sale, but I haven't found it anywhere other than in an article like the one you saw, just broadly. But there are no specific documents that have been located, either of the sale, of an auction, of individual bills of sale. Nothing has been located. Now, I've only been on the project 6 months. I have almost 50 pages in a research log. I feel like I've done everything, but then every day I realize there's something else to do. But the typical paths that we would take to look for this kind of documentation is not resulting in any findings for me. So I have a lot of negative evidence right now. And also, one of the saddest things for me and the most frustrating is that in a court record where the administrator of the estate had actually been sued because he mismanaged the estate in 1860, he's asked to bring forth the records of the sales of the estates, and the court record states that they were missing at that time. So if they were missing in 1860, the likelihood of me finding them in 2022, seems bleak. Okay, so what can I do? I'm gonna try to follow Shelley's model a little bit and take this plight onto social media. Put it out there, see if it rings any bells for anyone. And maybe I'll get some clues from someone who knows a little about this or may have heard about it in their family. I'm definitely collaborating with other researchers, and I don't think either one of them mentioned it, but Shelley and Juwan and I are actually meeting regularly to put our heads together on our projects. So that's very helpful. And then just continue the work. Next slide. So as I mentioned, this is a very new project, and the work at Wake Forest has really just begun and hasn't even fully begun. I was actually hired by a professor in the sociology department who wanted to get going with this, didn't want to wait until all the formalities had been, worked out. And so he hired me initially through his research funding. Now that we've gotten a step beyond that now, but I am not an employee of Wake Forest University the way Shelley is at UVA and Juwan is at William and Mary. They do have a plan to hire someone who would be the head, or as it says in the brown box, the manager of genealogy and historical research. But I guess I'm somewhat filling in the gap before they get there. Just this past spring, a subcommittee on descendant communities met, and this committee then came out with 3 charges. First, to examine frameworks developed and used by other communities and institutions with respect to descendant communities. They have met with Juwan and Shelley and heard from them about the work that they're doing. To assess the needs and capacity of Wake Forest University, led by the Slavery, Race, and Memory Project, to sponsor focused research and teaching on descendant communities. And that's kind of where I come in a little bit, but they're definitely going to go beyond me. And then to develop principles, guidelines, and frameworks for creating and sustaining an archive of institutional research and supporting research. So they really do have goals to dig in with this work at Wake Forest University. Okay, I think that's it. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies. We've landed on this question. And I also want to thank, we have 204 people who have joined us. So thank you all again for sticking in here with us. What is the path forward in our research? I think, we've laid out the parallels and also the differences in what we do, but at the heart of it is engaging with descendant communities. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the path forward for us is next semester starting the Lemon Project Genealogical Research Roundtable. That'll meet on the 3rd Thursdays, not every Friday, but the 3rd Thursday of every month, and also continuing to participate in the platform that Dr. Murphy has set up, the Freedmen Bureau Fridays, continuing to be open to others who collaborate with us. For an example, we get research inquiries and information from Colonial Williamsburg. We have researchers there who have reached out to us, who have been willing to partnership because they have access to records that have names of people who were enslaved by the college. So just building those types of relationships, I think is really, really critical. So that's where I'm on it in terms of just pushing forward and doing a more robust engagement of communities and people who are interested in this research that we're doing.
And I'll say for me, Dr. Johnson, I'm going to ditto some of the things that you mentioned. And number one was getting more engaged in the community, being there with prospective descendants, as well as descendants of the slaveholder and descendants of the enslaved laborers. So I think it's really critical that we keep that door open for people to come in. Yes, it's a lot of research that we're doing. We love the research, otherwise we wouldn't even be doing it when we know the challenges that we're all facing. And Renata commented on most of them. I too don't have ages or locations as well as far as where these people are coming from. So I have to research the enslaved laborers, the slave holders, just as much as trying to find a descendant once I do get a name. So it's critical for what's going forward is to get as many as I can to know about this project and where we're going and to see a connection. Also, if there's any other resources or if anyone, and I'll say this on behalf of all three of us, if there's an area where you think there might be some connection, call us. We'll come and do a presentation. We'll talk about what we've done if it helps people get information to us and we give them information. And so it's definitely a plea to say, tell people, share this. We're talking about Wake Forest. We're talking about that community. We're talking about William and Mary's community, and we're talking about the University of Virginia's community. If people have ties, for us to move forward is for you guys to come with us and bring your resources, records, and information. And so I'm going to turn it over to Renata at this point.
Again, being third allows me to kind of just piggyback and well, we are all on one accord here.
Yes.
So everything that doctors Johnson and Murphy have said, I 100% agree with. I think a limitation for me, if I don't really like to say I have limitations, but one of the things that makes it a little more challenging for me is that, again, I'm not an employee of Wake Forest. I'm not in the Wake Forest University physically in the community. Even if I were, the community where the college is not the community where these enslaved people were located. So, and in one way that might be a little bit in my favor because I am only 2 hours away from Edenton. So I haven't gone down there yet. I have gone on a research trip to the State Archives in Raleigh, as well as the Southern Historical Collection at UNC Chapel Hill. But if I need to go to Edenton, I can. I did speak to people in Edenton in the records offices and the courthouses. Everything that they had from that period of time was now located in Raleigh. So that's why I went to Raleigh. But quite a bit of it is also online. I also should mention that when I was initially hired, I was hired only to do online research, and I tried to help them understand that wasn't going to work, that eventually I would need to go on site. And so I was just able to do that early October. And so that was a good progressive move. I think that for me, moving forward, the biggest thing is going to be what I mentioned before, which is opening this up, getting the word out there, getting a little bit over some of my shyness and it's kind of tough for me sometimes, to just get out there and really sell stuff and approach people and stuff, but I've got to get over that because it's going to be somebody from the community that's going to give me that golden nugget. And so I gotta get it out there. The only reason I haven't done it yet is because I want to be able to present it in such a way that I don't spend the majority of my time saying to people, I've already done that, I've already looked there. I somehow want to let the community know what I have done so that the suggestions won't be at that level. So that's what I'm kind of working on right now, how to get it out there. So that's it for me.
And we have some questions. Before we get to those, I wanted to place our contact information. This is how you can reach us via email. I think all of us also have a pretty strong online presence. So you can find us on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, email works great. But we're gonna get to some questions here. Bear with me one moment. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. All right. Yes.
Joanna, you're gonna pull all the questions? Or you and Sarah, or do I need to be?
Yeah.
And I'm here too.
You have a document here. Bear with me one moment.
Oh,
I think it has all of our questions. I think it does. Let's see. Okay. It does. So Ms. Murphy, you mentioned you had to look at the law. Also, where did you start when it came up to legal research?
well, number one, I wanted to know a little bit more of Thomas Jefferson and his ideas of what was happening first. So as far as the building of the university. And the reason I say him first before I get to the specific law, because he's the one that said the students couldn't bring their enslaved laborers with them. So there it goes into the hands of the professors and other people that are on those grounds that were able to rent their enslaved laborers to the university. So I had to learn where that came from and why. And that was, from Thomas Jefferson. Other than that, with Maggie, the Midwest African American Genealogy Institute, there was a class on, it was a timeline by Judy Russell, who is called the legal genealogist, which a lot of us know, but she teaches a class during that Genealogy Institute, and it's called Slavery and the Law. So she had a timeline, and I used that timeline, which would have came throughout history, starting back from 1600s and coming forward, to know what was the law regarding enslaved laborers becoming free, challenges, and things like that. So I use that as a benchmark besides hitting the HathiTrust, those type websites, and following what I could. Or was there a situation where someone was applying for freedom? Did it go to court? What happened and things like that? Because I wanted to be able to track people, to find their whereabouts. So I needed to know what was dictating where they were as enslaved folks. If they were property, they were able to be sold, rented, mortgaged, whatever it is, or even gifted. So was there a law that said that? Okay, maybe I got elders. What was the law regarding people that are basically old and enslaved? Well, 1705, there's an act, and I'll let folks go ahead and read about that. But you know what? They couldn't sell them. They had to take care of them. And I put it that way, because coming through, once I got to 1870, if any of the people likely made it to 1870, then I could backtrack and go through and say, okay, the Freedmen Bureau, according to law, overseen by the military, started basically 1865 to 1872. Another reason to look at the law, know who was governed, where documents were at, and where those documents and who got copies and so forth. So I ended on that, and I hope that helped and answered the question. But really it was Judy Russell's timeline going through history, and other books and other things where slave era research has been done.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Just to add to that real quickly,
Yeah.
I think I'm glancing at the names that I can see on the first screen, and I think, most of the people that I see on here already know this, but in case there's one person who doesn't, when you're doing genealogy research, you have to know the law. So it's not even specific to these projects that we're doing. You have to study the laws of that time period, as well as of that specific location, so that you can, as Shelley said, understand why certain things are happening, why your ancestor was doing this at this time in this certain way, or, things. So that is just a part of genealogy research, if there's anyone on here who didn't know that.
And I think that kind of comes natural, when you're looking at documents and you realize, okay, I need to understand the legalities here. If it's an instance where enslaved people are gifted to a woman for her wedding, gift.
Yeah.
What are the complexities of that? Women who own property. And so you just, I think intuitively you follow the law to under.
Well, and you know what? A deed, a will.
Exactly. These are legal documents.
That's where the people are at, our people are at, and things like that. And during certain periods of time, in colonial time, you're gonna find folks that are enslaved. You gotta find those land patents. There's
Absolutely.
not gonna be office of vital statistics. You're gonna have
Right.
to know what documents, and again, what you're both saying is you gotta know what's there and
Absolutely.
where it's at. And can you
Exactly.
find it?
Absolutely.
And that's another challenge, but you do have to know the law. Yeah. So thank
this-
you guys for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could stress that any better, to say not only just pulling documents
Mhm.
offline or whatever, what law said you had to have that document to do whatever.
Correct.
Yes.
And this question is about DNA. Will you be using DNA to further the research? I know. Yeah, there are many of us with West Indian ancestors who have the DNA matches pointing to Virginia. Might DNA be helpful? Now, as for me, I, of course, deal with clients, deal with family members who do use it. I haven't used it in my research, but I know that Dr. Murphy and Renata, you have also used it quite a bit in your research.
Yes, if it comes down to a place where DNA can help to
Mhm.
answer a question or to prove or disprove a genetic connection, then I can certainly see maybe encouraging someone. I actually have talked to one potential descendant. There's just something we have to work out in one generation because it turned out that the person I reached out to also does genealogy research on her family. And so there was quite a bit that she had done already, and we had a conflict at one generation. So I'm not 100% sure that she is the descendant that I think she is. And she actually, brought it up and said, well, I wonder if, because she's already done DNA. So she's like, I wonder if we can find a descendant of this person and see if they're matching my DNA. So yes, that would be absolutely wonderful if we could do that. But I don't think it's a built-in part of any of our projects, but just something that could be suggested. If
It's
it would
another
answer the
resource.
question. Mhm.
Another resource that could be used. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you ever work with children as part of teaching and educating communities? Do you think they can play a role in your work? I'll say absolutely. With the Lemon Project, we started the Lemon Learners Camp with middle schoolers, where we did kind of a genealogy boot camp for 5 days. And so they worked on built trees on their families. Some of them had came from families that had been doing genealogical research for years. And so they were further introduced to community history, to family history research as well. Also this past summer, First Baptist Church in Williamsburg did a genealogical research camp in partnership with Jack and Jill of Hampton. And so we were able to educate about a dozen children through that program, who also did public presentations in each of these projects. They've done public presentations, and we plan to continue that as a part of our initiatives with the Lemon Project.
I personally have done in other research, but not specifically with the UVA research, but the descendants of the ones have. And they've included their families, along with the research, sharing the stories, some of the challenges and things. And one thing I do want to highlight, just recently, we added some additional names to the memorial to enslaved laborers at the University of Virginia. And the descendants were there. It was for them, the unveiling of the new names added on the wall. And there were children there, and one of the descendants had his 2 sons there. That was my highlight of the whole day, because they were at the wall. They could see the names because they're old enough to be able to read. And you know what? They knew that was family. They
Mhm.
might not have known a whole bunch of details, but they had big smiles on their faces standing there and saw the names up there. That's what really makes this such a rewarding part. No matter how many challenges we face, it is rewarding to make that reconnection, that if we are able to find, descendants of these enslaved laborers, and some families that I've had so far didn't know, had no idea. There could be assumptions. So a lot of times they might have heard something, but now we could help validate some of that and add to their family stories. So again, as far as children, the more the merrier. Start them young, talk to them, share the stories, guide them through there. And Renata, I'm gonna throw it to you.
So I have not formally had the opportunity to work with children through this project, of course, or in any of my other genealogy work. However, I am a retired elementary school teacher, and although I, did everything I needed to do that was in our curriculum, I snuck a few side things in too when I was still working. And well, there are some pieces of the curriculum that easily lent themselves to me expanding and enriching them by having my students do things like interview their parents and grandparents and come in and do a presentation based on the interview questions that we came up with together in class, which were family history questions. And I taught third grade mostly. Some years I taught second, but I mostly taught third grade. And so, they got to work on their research skills, their interviewing skills, their presentation skills, and created a physical artifact that was displayed about their family history. So that's something I used to do with my students pretty much every year. But now that I've been retired for 5 years, I haven't had the opportunity to do that again.
And this next question is about oral history. Tania Meredith recently hired at William & Mary as the oral historian for the Bray School and wanted to know if we could describe a time when an oral history yielded information in your research. Okay, go ahead.
You go first.
Well, a lot of people on here already know that I have 2 presentations about my great-grandfather, Calvin Yarborough, who was enslaved for 25 years, the first 25 years of his life. And in those presentations, I talk about the fact that the only piece of oral history that I had was my aunt telling me that we were supposed to be Neals and not Yarboroughs. And so that was something that I kept in the back of my mind all the years that I have been researching, and was able to, I can't tell you the whole story right now, but once I started to see a Neal connection in some of the records regarding my great-grandfather's enslavement, I was able to dig deeper and found out just in the last year through a combination of DNA matches and traditional research that my great-grandfather's parents were actually Neals, his siblings were actually Neals, but he had been separated from them, and he ended up choosing to take the name of his last owner, which was Yarborough, and the rest of his family kept the surname or took the surname Neal. So if it weren't for that oral history, I would never have had the flag to go up the first time I saw that his owner had married someone named Elizabeth Temperance Neal. It would have never meant anything to me.
Right.
And I ended up having to research her family, which is where I found Calvin being transferred, from one person to the next every time someone died. He had 4 owners altogether. So that was just one example of how oral history has helped me to, further my research.
So what I will contribute on that real quickly is I think oral history is very valid. there's different aspects of it that might not match up what a document would have and what oral history would have came through the generations. Sometimes that oral history changes. And again, it could have been a child that heard that information and communicated it through the lines. So I think it's critical that we hear that as researchers, but then look at it as leads. Those are sources, they're hints, and they're leads that will help us get there, but sometimes it's not totally what's there. And a prime example is my own personal research on a third great grandfather. And the oral history took it down on William Davis, and his wife was a Mildred Brand. 50 years, the oral history talked about the Davis family, the enslaver, so on and so forth. You know what? It was the Brands. The whole thing was the Brand. It was the wife's family, and everything about the oral history that came through generations was everything that I was able to discover about the third great grandmother and not her husband. So again, the hints were there, the oral history was there, but I'd like people to just be open to gather that information and try to see how they could work with the documents, resources, along with that history coming through to come out at the end with something that makes sense and things like that. But it's very valuable. But again, I look at it as hints and leads, and I'm going to put it this way. I was stuck 25 years in a community looking at the wrong family just because of the oral history, but it had it down pat, but it was just the wife, not the husband. And that was why I was stuck. I was looking at the wrong side. So again, we got so many challenges with it, but it is one of the great resources that we have to rely on to help us get to the next step or the next generation. So that's my input.
And I was saying, particularly when you're doing African-American genealogy research, and for me, it was the hints that I received from the oral histories that really allow for that breakthrough past 1870. The names of towns, sometimes they were mispronounced in the oral histories.
Or misspelled.
Misspelled. And I will also say this as it relates to this project, when I just really, because there are communities, there are community organizations that do oral histories. And particularly here in Williamsburg, but the local Black Histories initiative that's a part of the Village Initiative, that particular local Black Histories project, they recorded and they have an archive. And so I've been able to listen to those interviews, read those transcripts just to get a better understanding of the communities here, the surnames in this area. So as I began to further inquire and further go deeper into the research and move forward, then I have some kind of an orientation of who is here and how the names may connect with my research. So I think it's very valid, as my colleagues have stated. Use it for your leads, use it, but also think critically about everything, whether it's a written document or an oral history. Approach it through a critical lens. It's 6:07, but we have a few
7:07, Juwan.
7:07, yeah. I'm on Central. I'm actually in Alabama, so I'm on Central.
Yeah, well, it's 12:08 where I'm at. AM.
But I did want to ask two more questions
Sure.
for you all, if you would allow me. This person wants to know about a bit more about Freedmen Bureau's Fridays.
Go for it. You know it. We all hang out there on Friday.
We all hang out there. I would say this is a wonderful community that Dr. Murphy has created for those who are interested in delving deeper into the Freedmen Bureau records, which has probably become one of my favorite record sets. And even more recently, I've been able to find ancestors whom I had a clue that they were enslaved, but didn't have any evidence. So just being in that space, sharing what I found, listening to what other people find, just getting a broader understanding of that record set, because there's so many layers, so many levels to it. And every time I step in that room, I learn something new. Now it goes on sometimes for hours. I can only stick around usually 1 hour. But I think as in terms of you building a genealogical research community, that community is present there. And you have people from many different areas of expertise and from many different states who convene there. And most recently, there have been kind of some training sessions. I do believe that from the Library of Virginia, the Virginia Untold Project, one of the representatives from that spoke. And so, of course, there's just a wealth of information there. Even if you just chimed in for 30 minutes, you'll hear something that's going to spark an idea that's maybe leads you down the path to what you may need for your research project. So I would encourage you to join. It starts at 7 p.m. every Friday, and they are there every Friday. And
No matter what.
no matter what.
I'm out of the country and they still had it, and we'll have it tomorrow night too. So yes, absolutely. I do want to make one comment, and
Mhm.
why this is my favorite collection as well is because this is the step right after freedom.
Mhm.
So this is the opportunity that those who were enslaved to get help, to get assistance. Whatever that assistance is, food, education, transportation, this, that, and other, it's a laundry list. This is the time you will see names,
Mhm.
and you might see surnames. You might see former owners of these folks. You might see children. And for people, as far as Virginia, you're looking at marriages, because it didn't even become legal for enslaved people until they were free till February, I think it's 27th, 1866. So you also have the link that he mentioned about the Library of Virginia. So there is definitely an opportunity to possibly find your people and who they might have been enslaved by, or whatever was going on, or who they're working. There's labor contracts on there, and 9 times out of 10, the labor contract of someone that is now free is probably with their former enslaver. And so we got great, we walked through the first hour and a half looking at the Freedmen Bureau. Everybody, whoever wants to share, bring forth questions, challenges, and we also look at other states, not just Virginia. So everybody is welcome to come hang out with all of us. And again, we know some folks that are there for just a couple hours. Some folks are cooking the whole time and just listening in and taking notes. So everybody's welcome. And again, we want you to share because that helps all of us.
And if
And
we're talking,
we're there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're talking about the afterlives of slavery, this is the record.
Yes.
This is the
That-
record.
This is it. This is it. 1865 to 1873, 72, but it actually goes a little further than that as the Bureau was closing. And just remember, the Bureau was oversawn by the military. So that means there's records, that means there's paper. There's paper.
Juwan, we have a hand up, Kathleen
Yes,
Anderson.
but I was going to get to this question
Oh,
before.
you have, okay.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of them, but this one was, and feel free to comment on this at any level that you like. So if descendants are found, what reparations will be provided by the universities? So feel free in whatever way you'd like to answer that based on the information you have.
Well,
Yeah, I
I'll
can
make
just
it.
say,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I can say that I don't have an answer. I do know that it is something that's being discussed at Wake Forest, and it's the purpose for them wanting to find the descendants is that they do want to do something, but I don't know what the something is going to be at this moment.
You want
No,
me to say
Yeah,
something?
you can go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, there's not anything that's actually in place yet. Discussions and talks are going on, but we've got the state that one of the senators or put out a bill called HB Bill 1980. And so that aspect of some form of reparations, which I don't know what it is, but as far as 5 state schools in the state of Virginia, they were looking at scholarship opportunities. So again, right now, there was a committee put together and it is now back at the state's hands. So again, there's other portions about reparations and things that come up throughout that bill and other entities that have reparations in different forms, but not with the school I'm with, and I don't know about William and Mary. So it's open right now, and I'm gonna just say there's an awareness and a discussion.
And I'll say the same. I mean, William and Mary's listed amongst those universities, so there is an
One
awareness.
of the 5.
One of
yeah.
the 5 that is happening, but no formal statement has been made to my knowledge. Okay. Let's see, I think we have Kathleen Anderson, you have your hand up. You wanted to speak?
Okay. Yes, I have 2 questions. One, the first question is, where will we find this recording of tonight's session after the session?
Mhm.
And the other question is about the Friday events you were talking about.
Yes. Freeman
Where
Bureau
do we,
Fridays.
where do we find those? Where do we,
In the chat.
I placed it in the chat.
what did you place in the chat?
I placed the information that has the link and it has the dates. I'll place it again there. So I now refresh that. So you have the time, you have the topic, you have the dates that we will meet for the remainder of the year. There's the link, meeting code and passcode.
Okay, I have a cell phone that I'm working on. I can't access once this is closed, the chat is gone. And the
Okay.
only way that I can I can't copy the link from the chat.
Well,
Kathleen,
Dr. Murphy, would you like
I
to give her
Yes.
directive?
So I
Wait, she
posted I'm sorry. Go
Facebook.
ahead, Shelley, you tell us.
It's on Facebook. If you access Facebook, Finding Enslaved Laborers at UVA, it is a pinned link, means it's the first posting on that page. That is right there. It's the same link every week.
And that's what I posted in the chat because I figured not everybody would hold on to the link from here.
Yeah.
So every week I go to Finding the Enslaved Laborers at UVA and click on the link. I have
Yeah.
not tried to save it anywhere else. I just go to there on Facebook every time.
And
And
after December 30th, it will start another cycle and that one will go away and there'll be another X amount of every Fridays to doing it. And we meet every Friday.
Okay.
Doesn't even matter if it's a holiday, we're hanging out because great things happen when a bunch of people get together.
Absolutely. And so that's where we're going to leave it.
Yes.
And this recording, I will say, will be available on our YouTube channel, Lemon Project YouTube channel, within about 3 days. We'll give it that. Also, if you want to further engage in this conversation, I've placed the Freeman Bureau Friday information there. You can join this Friday. You can join next Friday. You can join whenever you'd like, where we can further delve into these types of questions. We have created a community. We want the exchange. We want the dialogue. But unfortunately, we have to end the meeting tonight. It has been a fabulous conversation with my colleagues, and I'm so appreciative of all of you who showed up to learn, to discuss, to participate in this conversation. And we look forward to continuing this work in the next semesters as we learn more about our research and as we present our findings to you. Have a wonderful evening and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks,
Renata.
Joanne. Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you,
Yes,
Sarah.
Sarah, thank you. She said she's emailing the recording out.
Okay.
I saw it in the chat. Thank you.